Good morning, everyone. Um, just a disclaimer. We realized that due to a technical fault, quite a lot of you had not received any approval mail for to join the webinar, and hence you probably did not have the permission to join the webinar. So we have gone ahead and manually approved your registration. So I can see that people are still joining in, and owing to that fact, we will be giving it another 7 to 8 minutes. It is 11:02 by my watch right now, so we will start the webinar at 11:10. That is 11:10. Until then, we will wait for people to join in. For those of you who have already joined the webinar, welcome and a very good morning to you. With regards to the flow of the webinar today, it will start with a presentation where we will be sharing the new travel restrictions and exemptions, which has been the same since October 20th with regard to the traveler students. And then we will be addressing the frequently asked questions, which we have received and put together based on the social media queries and email queries that we receive across all our channels. In today's webinar, we will not be addressing any questions directly from any of the audience. So request you to kindly listen to the information shared with you. And as mentioned, we will not be addressing any questions which are mentioned in the chat box or in the Q&A box. So as said in the beginning, we will wait for another 7 minutes now so that people can join in. Thank you so much for your patience.
एक्स्ट्रा क्लासेस लगेंगी।
ओके, चेक करते हैं जहां उनकी नजर हो।
To those of you who are joining in, the announcement once again, due to a technical glitch, quite a few of our participants today were unable to receive their approval or registration confirmation emails. We have manually gone into our systems and sent you the approval mail. So that is the reason people are still joining in from our end. And that is why we are giving it another 5 minutes so that people can join in and then we can go ahead and start the webinar. So for those of you who have been asking in the chat box if we have started and if you are unable to hear, I guess you are able to hear me right now. And we have not yet started with the webinar because as mentioned, because of a technical glitch, people were unable to join in earlier. So we're giving them some more time, maybe another 4 minutes, so that people can join in. Thank you so much for your patience. We will be starting the webinar in another 2 minutes. As mentioned, because of a technical glitch, quite a few people were not able to join in. We have manually gone ahead and approved their registration, so people are still joining in, as you can see on the system on our portal. So in another 2 minutes, we will be starting the webinar. Thank you so much for your patience. Just doing a sound check here. If you are able to hear me clearly, can you please raise your hand? There is a raise hand option on your portal, and if you can hear me clearly, if you can go ahead and just raise your hand to just let me know that you are able to hear me clearly. Thank you so much. I can see a lot of raised hands, which means we are good to go ahead and start the webinar. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the IRCC Study Permit webinar, where we will be sharing information with regard to travel restrictions, exemptions, and policy changes for international students. Now, for a few of you who are joining us today, this might be a repetition of the information which we shared in our previous webinar. So in case you feel that you have attended the previous webinar and as I said, this might just be a repetition of what we had shared at that time, then please feel free to go ahead and log off, because the information that was there in the previous webinar is the same as the one that we will be sharing today. With regards to the format of the webinar today, we will start with the presentation where we will share all the relevant information, and then we will address the frequently asked questions which we have put together based on social media queries and email queries which we receive across all our channels. So just to reiterate, in today's webinar, we will not be addressing any live questions from any of the audience. So in case you have pertinent questions, you can always write to us on social media, but even if you write repeated emails to us, we will not be able to address them, because for a few questions, we have generic responses which we have already provided on our social media channels. So please follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Canada in India. So without any further ado, let's start with the presentation. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar today. We are pleased to announce changes to the travel restrictions since October 20th, and that those exemptions will permit more international students to travel to Canada. As Canada looks at ways to safely bring in more international students, we wanted to also give you the opportunity to get updated information and ask questions. Please note that the contents of this webinar are valid as of today. For the most current information on IRCC processes and travel restrictions to Canada, please visit our website www.canada.ca/immigration. Let us begin. International students make significant cultural and social contributions to Canada. Since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, IRCC has implemented a number of temporary measures to support and reassure international students about the study permit process. We will cover what those measures are today by covering topics such as exemptions on those travel restrictions, processing changes due to COVID-19, the two-step review process, authorized leave during studies, impact on the post-graduation work permit program, as well as the recently announced Designated Learning Institute list. We will also cover important points such as who can represent you in your immigration application and what you need to know before traveling to Canada. We will end the presentation, as mentioned, with a FAQ session. For those of you who are considering studying in Canada, we want you to know what Canada has to offer should you choose to study at a Canadian institution. So why choose Canada? Many Canadian universities are highly ranked and reputed international standing. Canadian college and university diplomas are recognized around the world, and the Canadian educational system encourages cross-disciplinary studies to develop transferable skills such as critical thinking, teamwork, and communication. Canada is affordable and boasts a great quality of life with low cost of living, for example, housing, transportation, tuition. Everything here is lower in Canada than many other countries, including the US, France, and the UK. Canada is one of the safest countries in the world with a low crime rate. It is also ethnically and linguistically diverse, comprising of over 250 ethnicities who speak more than 200 languages. Would you like to look at living in Canada after your studies? Great. IRCC offers a post-graduation work permit to students who have obtained a diploma from a post-secondary school in Canada and are looking to gain experience. This is an excellent way to continue to live in Canada while diversifying and developing your professional skills. Now that you are seriously looking at choosing Canada to study, you should be aware of the current travel restrictions in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, nationally, we're seeing positive changes from actions put in place to stop the spread of COVID-19. We are taking precautions by ensuring there is more physical distancing, mandatory mask wearing, and promoting good hygiene practices. Canada is working to slow the spread of new cases by cautiously starting to allow more people to enter Canada. So this brings us to the latest changes to travel restrictions, which came into effect on October 20th. Canada is now allowing students who are destined to designated learning institutions who have an approved COVID-19 readiness plan approved by their provincial or territorial governments to enter Canada. As part of the DLI's approved readiness plan, they are expected to provide information to international students on health and travel requirements before they arrive in Canada, help students with their quarantine plans and provide guidance or assistance in acquiring the necessities of life such as food and medication during their quarantine, have a readiness plan to establish protocols for the health of students in the event there are suspected or confirmed COVID-19 cases at the school. The list of DLIs with an approved COVID-19 readiness plan is now posted on IRCC's webpage and is updated every 2 weeks as provinces and territories identify additional schools. This change to travel restrictions affects all international students regardless of where they are traveling from or when their study permit was approved. Travelers should not make any travel plans until they have met all requirements and received all necessary authorizations. With the amended travel restrictions, immediate family members may be able to accompany an international student to Canada if their reason for travel is non-optional or non-discretionary, such as getting established in Canada in support of the student's study program. This could include a spouse or a common law partner or a dependent. If your family or your immediate dependents are accompanying you, if they travel with you, they don't need a written authorization from IRCC to travel with you. However, they must show that their reasons for travel are non-discretionary. For example, they'll help you get established and support you in Canada. If your immediate family member will work or study in Canada, you must submit all of your applications together when you apply online. If they won't study or work, they may still need a visa to travel to Canada. If they need a visa, you should include their application when you apply online for your study permit. If they join you later, if you're already in Canada or will travel to Canada by yourself first and your family will join you later, what they need to travel to Canada depends on where they're traveling from. In order to find out what they need in order to join you in Canada, you need to visit our website. In this case, they might need an authorization letter along with an approved visa. To be clear, students who were approved a visa at any time, whether that was before or after March 18, will be allowed to travel to Canada, provided that their school is on the approved DLI list. Their travel is considered essential. The March 18 date was only applicable to travel restrictions in effect prior to October 20th, but it is no longer relevant. If your study permit is to attend a school which is not listed on the DLI approved list as of now, your visa will be deactivated. This means that you cannot travel to Canada at this time as you will receive a no board message from the airline. We are aware of many service disruptions that are causing delays in the processing of your application. Only online applications are accepted. This allows us to continually process applications across our network through work sharing of this caseload until operations normalize. Panel physicians, some businesses and schools remain closed or are operating at limited capacity. This means that it may take longer for you to complete your medical exam or obtain the supporting documents you need for your application. Despite this, we will not refuse applications for non-compliance or failure to submit the requested documents at this time. However, you must submit the missing documents as soon as possible because we will not be able to finalize your application otherwise. On the IRCC website, the published processing times are no longer accurate since we are prioritizing applications for people who are exempt from the travel restrictions. The India VACs are now booking appointments for biometrics for students. Applicants must complete the VFS web form online to book an appointment. VFS will confirm your appointment by email at a later date. Additionally, to submit your passport for visa issuance, visit the VFS website for instructions on how to access the two-way courier service. Note that IRCC Delhi continues to operate at a limited capacity as necessitated by the pandemic. As such, please expect delays in responding to inquiries. If you need to submit a document or new information, use your MyCIC account to send us this information directly into your application. Additionally, please only send one inquiry and wait for a response. Sending the same inquiry multiple times will only cause further delays. VFS is now accepting appointments for biometrics for students. Many students require biometric appointments, and we are asking for your patience as biometric appointments are being rolled out incrementally. At this time, only students and family class permanent resident applicants will be prioritized for biometric appointments. Therefore, family members of students may have to wait. Visit the VFS website and follow us on social media for updates to VAC priorities. Applications destined to school on the approved DLI list and the family class applications will be prioritized for processing and will receive a final decision on their application if all required documents have been submitted. This means that if your application is approved, you will be issued a visa so you can travel to Canada under the current travel restriction exemptions. If your DLI is not on the approved provinces and territories list, we will only finalize applications which result in a refusal. If you meet eligibility requirements, your application will not be approved for a visa until travel restrictions are further amended or lifted. You can scan this QR code on your screen to view the latest frequently asked questions for our visa application centers. You can scan it right now or after the presentation while I'm addressing our FAQs and study permits. I will come back to the slide so that you can view it and you can scan it using your Android phone or your Apple iPhone. The next slide reflects the documents needed to receive an approval in principle for the student direct stream and the non-SDS stream. For SDS, you need a valid letter of acceptance, an Ielts test result demonstrating 6.0 in each band, a receipt or documentation that tuition has been paid for the first year, including all scholarships and grants, a receipt for a GIC for 10,000 Canadian dollars, your most recent school transcripts, and a CAQ or Certificate of Acceptance for Quebec-bound students. For the non-SDS stream, here is what's different. In addition to Ielts, we also accept TOEFL and PTE results. No online language test results will be accepted. Instead of a GIC and paying a full year tuition, you should show liquid funds to pay for tuition, living expenses, and transportation for the first year of school, plus an explanation evidence of how you intend to pay for all of the remaining subsequent years of school without relying on working in Canada. Additionally, we strongly recommend that you submit a statement of purpose to explain why you have chosen that program of study, why Canada, and explain your financial plan to pay for all your years of study. Note that if you are unable to submit a required document, for example, upfront medicals, your application will be moved to the non-SDS stream. For those who applied before 15 September for a 2020 start date and are still awaiting for their approval in principle, you should review your MyCIC account and personal email account for any correspondences sent to you about missing information. Please make sure your application is complete or it will cause delays. You must still comply with your study permit conditions if your in-class course are temporarily moved to an online-only format or suspended completely because of COVID-19. To do this, you must stay enrolled in your DLI and participate in your studies online if your DLI offers them. If your DLI closes permanently due to COVID-19, you have 150 days to enroll in a new study program at a new DLI, to change your status to worker or visitor, or to leave Canada. Note that you are not permitted to work more than 20 hours per week despite a school closure or online learning. Many of you will have questions about working in Canada and how the current changes may affect your opportunity to be employed. So why is the Pgwp important for many students? Work experience provides a better opportunity to gain the language, skills, and work experience required to apply for permanent resident status in Canada. In addition, Canada has some of the highest salary for workers. Furthermore, persons with Canadian work experience are often able to demonstrate they have the skills, knowledge, and critical thinking required to do the job. It is worth noting that you can obtain up to a 3-year Pgwp. These all depends on the length of your eligible studies. IRCC has introduced additional measures to provide maximum flexibility for students to obtain their Pgwp. If you are unable to travel to Canada at this time due to travel restrictions, your eligible online studies will count towards your Pgwp if you already have or have been approved a study permit, or if you applied for a study permit before beginning your program in either 2020 or winter 2021. If you fall in any of the situations listed above, you can complete up to 100% of your program online while outside of Canada if your program is between 8 and 12 months in length and you started your program of study between May and September 2020. This essentially means that taking an entire one-year program online outside of Canada may qualify the entire program for a Pgwp. You can also complete up to 50% of one program online up until April 30th, 2021, while outside Canada if you will also eventually complete at least 50% of your program in Canada. Furthermore, you can complete up to 50% of two programs online up until April 30th, 2021, while outside of Canada if you graduate from two different programs within 2 years of each other, and each program is at least 8 months in length, and at least one of the programs started between May and September 2020, and at least 50% of the combined programs is completed in Canada. This means that you could potentially complete a one-year program outside of Canada and then take another one-year program in Canada, and both programs will give you the maximum allowable time towards your Pgwp. Note that only online classes that began in 2020 or winter 2021 and ending by April 30th, 2021 can be counted. Fall 2020 and winter 2021 semesters must also be a full-time course load. This section applies to students who are already in Canada. Essentially, if a student switched to part-time studies or had to take a break in studies, for example, the spring semester may have been cancelled due to the pandemic, they may still continue to work on and off campus provided that they were previously a full-time student and already authorized to work on or off campus pre-pandemic. For off-campus work, the maximum limit is still 20 hours per week during the academic session and full-time during regular academic breaks. School closure, part-time studies, or semester cancellation due to COVID-19 do not count as a regularly scheduled academic break. If you decide to study and work in Canada, you may then decide to make Canada your permanent home. To begin the process of applying for permanent residence, you must submit your profile in the Express Entry online system. This will show you how many comprehensive ranking system points you have based on your education, work experience, language ability, and other factors. On a regular basis, IRCC invites the candidates with the most points in the Express Entry pool to apply for permanent residence through one of the federal economic immigration programs. Having a plan to quarantine is a very important piece to the travel restrictions being relaxed for international students. Make sure you follow it. Not doing so could end up costing you or others COVID-19 as well as imprisonment, removal from Canada, and a fine of up to $750,000. Before traveling, you should organize and arrange for the following. Have a plan to self-quarantine for 14 days. Be prepared to provide evidence that you have a suitable place to quarantine. This means providing an address and explaining how you intend to self-quarantine if other people live at that same location. Explain how you intend to respect that quarantine plan. For example, explain how do you intend to receive essential items such as food. Here are various fraud activities and misinformation related to immigration applications. You should scan the QR code on the screen for more information. Protect yourself. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Never share your personal information with unauthorized strangers. Fraudulent websites and scams. Websites may claim to be official Government of Canada sites. They do this to trick people into paying them money. Biometric services and IRCC forms. Biometric appointments are free. You should book your own biometric appointment. If you can't book your own appointment, don't use an unauthorized agent because your appointment may not be legitimate. Telephone scams. IRCC will never ask you for any sort of payment by telephone. Unauthorized agents. You do not need an agent to submit an application. If you choose to use one, ensure that your agent is legally authorized to represent you by being a member of a law society in Canada, the Chambre des Notaires in Quebec, or ICCRC, a regulatory body for immigration consultants in Canada. All paid agents must be authorized. An authorized representative can provide you with valuable tips to avoid paying too much money for an immigration service, as well as what you can expect. With that, I come to the end of the presentation for today. Please make sure to follow us on social media for updates regarding the VAC two-way courier service in addition to the DLI COVID-19 Readiness Plan approved list. We have the IRCC website, the High Commission website, and social media such as Facebook and Twitter, where we continue to provide all the updated information with regard to travel restrictions, exemptions, and any new changes to policies relating to students and the postgraduate work permit. We will now move on to the frequently asked questions section of the webinar today. But before we do that, as mentioned during the presentation, let me open up the slide, which has the QR code for the frequently asked questions for the Visa Application Center. I will be keeping the screen on the QR code so that you can continue scanning the QR code while I continue addressing the frequently asked questions. So, with regard to the current travel exemptions for international students, reiterating once again, to be exempt from travel restrictions, the designated learning institution that you will be attending must have a COVID-19 readiness plan approved by their province or territory. The list can be accessed on our website. A student must be in possession of either an approved study permit and visa or a port of entry letter of introduction, and you should not travel to Canada until at most 3 weeks before the start date of your class. Moving on to some of the questions. So, one of the first question is, how do I demonstrate that my travel to Canada is essential to the airline and when I'm seeking to enter Canada? You will not be required to produce any other documentation to board your flight other than your valid passport, your study permit, visa, and/or your port of entry letter of introduction. A letter confirming the start date of your classes from your designated learning institute, evidence of your ability to quarantine for 14 days prior to studying, evidence that you have enough money to support yourself. All other students destined to DLIs not on the list, despite having reasons for not being able to complete courses online, will not be able to travel to Canada at this time. This includes students that may have been previously in Canada and were studying. So this brings us to the next question, which is, how do I know if my school is on the approved DLI list? The list is available on the IRCC website. If your DLI is not on the list, please contact your learning institution directly to find out if they have submitted a COVID-19 readiness plan and at what stage they are at regarding their approval. The next question is with regard to processing. So is the two-stage processing available for winter 2021 start dates? The answer to this is no. The two-stage processing is only for classes that started in 2020. If you have already deferred your studies prior to receiving your AIP or your approval in principle, you will fall under the regular process. This means that you will not receive an AIP letter and you must wait for your application to be approved to its final stage when we are ready to issue you a visa. At this time, only applications to study at schools on the DLI approved list will be finalized to visa issuance. All other applicants must wait until either the school appears on the DLI approved list or the travel restrictions are lifted. The next question is, I have not received an AIP or approval in principle and my DLI is listed to be approved with a COVID-19 readiness plan. Will I now receive a stage 1 AIP and then later will it be reviewed for stage 2? The answer to this is yes. You will receive an AIP letter if you submitted your application prior to September 15th and began your program in 2020. In addition, we will send you a request letter to submit your biometrics and medical exam if you have not yet provided them. Otherwise, if your biometrics and medicals have already been submitted, we will assess stage 2. If you pass stage 2 and your DLI has an approved COVID-19 readiness plan, we will send you a letter to submit your passport for visa issuance. The next question is, if I'm missing a few documents like medicals, may I still qualify for student direct stream? The answer to this is no. If you are not able to submit all the documents under SDS or student direct stream, the officer will assess your application as a regular non-SDS application. The next question is, what do I do if I cannot submit a document within the requested time frame? Upload a letter of explanation on your MyCIC account explaining why you can't submit the required documents like your proof of enrollment, final transcripts, or others. For example, you may not be able to get these documents at this time because offices are closed. When we start processing your application, we'll ask for the missing documents and give you an extension to provide them if needed. We won't reject your application if you can't submit the required documents other than your letter of acceptance because of COVID-19. You can also share with us this information by filling up our IRCC web form. Note that you must provide the letter of acceptance from a DLI upfront when you apply. We won't process applications that are submitted without this document. The next question is, if I'm granted an approval in principle, may I assume that once I complete my biometrics and medicals, I will get a student visa? The answer to this is no. AIP is not the same as being granted a visa. The officer will still need to establish that you meet admissibility requirements. Note that a stage 2 refusal is uncommon provided that you have been truthful in your application, have not provided any fraudulent documents, and that you comply with any additional requests immediately. The next question is, will IRCC issue any co-op work permits to students upon receiving approval of a study permit in principle or a stage 1 approval? The answer to this is that a stage 1 eligibility approval is not a guarantee that a study permit application will be approved. As a result, a co-op work permit cannot be issued before a final decision is made on a study permit application. However, this does not prevent you from beginning your co-op program while abroad. The work permit is only required for work to be done in Canada and not outside Canada. The next question is, will I receive a refund of my tuition fee if my application is refused when I'm studying online in India with a DLI in Canada? DLIs are responsible for setting their refund policies. IRCC cannot speak to this issue, but students are encouraged to ensure that they are familiar with the various DLI policies relevant to their situation. The next question is, what if my classes start prior to me receiving my stage 1 approval in principle? You may have started school online prior to obtaining your AIP. If you receive your AIP after you started school, all the time will still count towards your Pgwp, provided that you submitted your application before you began your online studies. The next question is, when should I submit my passport for visa issuance? The visa application centers in India currently remain closed, and in the interim, a VAC two-way courier service has been launched. We are requesting passports in stages in order to receive passports in an orderly manner. Orderly submission of passports will expedite processing of visa requests. Applicants are advised not to submit their passports unless they receive a two-way courier instruction. IRCC will be prioritizing student applications from approved DLIs where students can travel to Canada. The next set of questions is with regard to the new travel amendments for students. So the question is, will my DLI have to provide me any supporting documents even if they are on the list of provinces and territories approved institutes with a COVID-19 readiness plan? The answer to this is yes. DLIs are to provide guidance regarding the requirements to travel and quarantine in Canada, including what to do should someone encounter or be affected with COVID-19. The next question is, should my institute provide an updated letter of acceptance stating that they are on the government's list of approved institutes? The answer to this is no. This is not a requirement since the list has been published and will be updated regularly. In case your DLI is not on the list, you may want to contact them to find out at what stage they are regarding the approval. You only need to provide an updated LOA if you are deferring your studies and/or switching DLIs. The next set question is, my DLI is not currently on the approved list. Are there any chances of more DLIs being added? The answer to this is yes. The approved DLI list is reviewed regularly and updated every 2 weeks. In order to keep yourself updated of the most recent list, please follow our IRCC website and also follow us on social media at Facebook and Twitter. The next question is, my DLI is on the approved list, but my classes are still going to be online. Can I travel to Canada? The answer to this is yes. As per the new travel amendments, irrespective of the medium of classes, physical or online, students may travel to Canada as long as they have an approved study permit and their DLI is on the approved government list. The next question is, will I be able to work in Canada once in the country, even if my classes are online? The answer to this is yes. Once you land in Canada, you are eligible to work for up to 20 hours a week. You may also work outside of Canada if you choose to continue your studies online abroad. In this circumstance, IRCC cannot enforce the amount of hours you can work, although we do recommend you focus on your studies as a priority. Moving on to the next set of questions which address queries with regard to language tests. So the first question is, may I submit a language proficiency test result that I completed online? If my school has accepted my results for my admission, is this sufficient? The answer to this is no. IRCC does not accept results from online language tests. There are no changes to the language proficiency assessment score requirements. The recommended tests are IELTS for English and TEF or TCF for French. We also accept TOEFL and PTE academic. Test scores from Duolingo or any other online language test will not be accepted for any immigration application purposes, including for study permits. The next question is, what if my IELTS score is expired or about to expire? Given the limited availability of open test centers at this time, we will accept the IELTS results as long as they were valid on the day you submitted your application. The next question is, does IRCC accept PTE language scores as proof of language ability for a study permit application? The answer is yes. We accept PTE language scores. You must submit your scores to IRCC using the PTE portal. Do not include your username and password in your study permit application. The next set of questions is with regard to deferring of your studies. So the question says, my application is still pending. What happens if I defer my studies to a later semester? If you choose to defer your studies, ensure you submit a new letter of acceptance using the web form as soon as possible so we may update your file. The next question is, I received my approval of my study permit, but deferred my studies. How do I extend my visa? The answer to this is you will need to apply for a new study permit with updated information because extensions of study permits are only granted to students who are already in Canada. The next set of questions is with regard to post-graduation work permits. When determining if 50% or more of a program has been completed in Canada for Pgwp eligibility, how is the time calculated? The answer to this is that 50% of the total program of study is calculated based on the number of courses completed in Canada. In a situation where part of the semester is completed in Canada and the other part online overseas, IRCC will consider that the semester was completed in Canada. Applicants may have to submit additional documents from the DLI. The next question is, I have already completed 50% of my program online prior to the fall semester. Will I be eligible to receive a Pgwp? So this is a many-fold question, and with regard to the answer, there are different layers to this. You may complete 100% of your program online if your program is between 8 and 12 months in length, if you started your studies between May and September. One of the programs started between May and September 2020, if each program is at least 8 months in length, and if you complete at least 50% of the combined length of the programs in Canada. The next question is, do we have to wait for an AIP for courses to count towards Pgwp? The time spent studying online abroad will count towards the student's Pgwp after they submit a study permit application and before they begin their online classes if their program of study started in 2020 or January 2021. Therefore, the length of the Pgwp will be considered from the date the student's official courses began, so long as the study permit application was submitted before the courses officially commenced. The next question is with regard to accompanying dependents. The question is, with the new travel amendments in place, what will be the status of the spousal applications which were in process and whose spouses are now eligible to travel to Canada? IRCC is processing those applications and all applicants will receive decisions on their applications soon. However, because of service disruptions and limited staff, there is a backlog which IRCC is working through, so applicants are requested to kindly be patient. Also note that at this time, biometric appointments are only being provided for family class permanent resident applicants and for students and not their dependents, which means that their dependents will probably have to be a little more patient to go ahead and submit their biometrics. The next question is, will my dependents be eligible to travel with me to Canada if they have a temporary resident visa and I have a study permit? With the amended travel restrictions, immediate family members may be able to accompany an international student to Canada if their reason for travel is non-optional or non-discretionary, such as getting established in Canada in support of the principal applicant study program. This could include a spouse or common law partner, a dependent, or in the case of a minor child who will be studying in Canada, a parent or a legal guardian. Like all travelers to Canada, international students and accompanying family members will be subject to all public health measures, including the mandatory 14-day quarantine period upon arrival in Canada. To be exempt from the travel restrictions, temporary resident visa holders who are immediate family members of study permit holders require a letter of authorization from IRCC in order to travel to Canada. A request for an authorization to travel may be made by sending an email to our IRCC COVID travel exemption mailbox. The following information should be contained in the email. Documentation showing that they are an immediate family member of the study permit holder, why they need to travel for an essential purpose, and their file number, name, and date of birth. I will quickly move on to the slide which has the email address for the COVID-19 authorization letter mailbox so that you can either take a picture of it or a snapshot of it so that you can save it with yourself for when you might need it. Looks like that is probably not a part of our slide. So for the benefit of those who might want to have access to that email ID in order to write to us for an authorization letter, I am just typing this out in the chat box. So in case you are interested to copy it, please go ahead and copy it and you can make a note of it. So I have now shared the email ID, the travel exemption mailbox email ID for your reference, and you can go ahead and copy it. With that, we come to the end of the webinar for today. As mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we will not be taking up any live questions from you because most of the questions have been answered through the FAQ section and the information provided in the webinar. One more additional information is that in case you have a query which is specific to your file, please write to us and please send us just one mail. As mentioned in the presentation, sending repeated mails actually takes away resources from the limited resources that we're working with from processing time, and that actually delays the processing of your application. So, having said that, I would continue to request you to please follow us on social media. Our social media channel pages are mentioned here, both for Facebook and Twitter. Also, please visit our IRCC website for all the latest information with regard to travel restrictions, exemptions, and policy changes with regard to study permits. Thank you so much for giving us your time today and hope the information provided during the webinar was helpful for you. And we hope that you will be able to join us in the next webinars where as and when we share information, and all of that is shared on social media. So thank you so much. Have a good day. Stay safe and take care.